two-click studio, as I call it. I mean, really, I mean, if you've really got this on your hand, you've got this, like we said, so many videos online. Be able to do that sitting alone in one corner of the world with one laptop. I think, I mean, really, technology can really be used well if you get down to it. So, Michelle, thank you very much for being part of the symposium. And like I said, of course, we've had that greeting going. To do it again, for me, it's a little, I just know, like I said, it's just a little fake, it seems. So I keep saying that, look, the whole thing has to be right there and start recording when the person comes in. But definitely, it's every time doesn't happen. So thank you very much.
Not a problem. You are more than welcome. And thank you for having me. So
what's going to happen, Michelle, is first, are you wanting to tell us about yourself first, or you want to tell us about the symposium first? What do you want to tell? About yourself.
I'll do it myself first. Well, my name is Michelle. I'm representing the United States. I do a lot of work in mediation. This is something that just recently I've really gotten into. I've taken a love to it because I've found myself being a thinker. I had no idea that conflict resolution was something that I would love so much, especially considering my background of being the person that needed conflict resolution. So I've taken control of, I guess, my career and my life I went to college right now I'm at Pepperdine University. I'm a course for the master's program for conflict resolution. I'm almost done, but I'm finished this semester, actually. I also have a master's in law. I have my degree in psychology, and I have a degree in business administration. And so what I do a lot of times is work with people that need help with other alternatives to dispute, because I'm against incarceration. I don't like a whole lot of separation of parties where people feel as though situations cannot be solved. Coming from Baltimore, Maryland, I understand how conflicts can bring a community down. Is my internet stable?
It gets, yeah, sometimes what happens is that we skip, the one word gets skipped. If it's important, I'll ask you to repeat it. If I can understand it, I won't. Yeah.
Okay. Coming from Baltimore, I'm not sure if you've heard of Baltimore, but it's just a community where it's a lot of conflict, and it can cause people to behave in ways that is not under society's norm proper. And so I think that incorporating conflict resolution can help save not only a person, but a community. And in turn, it saves the world, when we put it all together. It sounds crazy when you say it, but that's how it happens, one person at a time. So I'm also a professor. I teach interdisciplinary studies, and falls on with the social sciences, so sociology, psychology, all of those different things. So I just started doing that too. And that has been quite a joy to my heart, because now I'm able to teach people about the behaviors that they have and why they have those behaviors. So that's a little bit about me.
That's a lot, Michelle. That's a lot. So it's going to be interesting. You're bringing in so much here. So that's going to be really interesting. But before that, a little bit on the symposium, please. What are you going to tell us about the symposium? You said you saw some of the things, your sessions. So what have you? Please.
When I think about colonization, I think about the word control. To me, that's something that encompasses a lot of power. Someone is trying to take power over, someone else, another culture. It's the individual level of colonization is control, or could it be something positive? I try to think about, well, what is it? How do we think about, or how does one think about colonization and how it influences a culture? And the types of colonizations are settler, exploitation, and internal. And so for a settler, it's a person, they travel around and they want to take over a region. Exploitation, they take over a region with the intent of exploiting their natural resources. And when that force is within the region and they're a part of it, but they take over it. And then where does that leave the indigenous people? And so I think about how people's mind is controlled, when colonization occurs, the effects of colonization, I think it affects people's health care, it affects their money, it's all about power. And decolonization can occur when recognizing different beliefs. I think about how if we look at how other people live and how the mindsets of individuals, we can learn how to respect one another through mediation. We can understand what empathy is, and we can understand that it's important to just be respectful and understand how we can just get along, and be as one without using control and without using power. That's what I think about when I say colonization, decolonization, and mediation.
Perfect. Why I had put up that about the website was only because of the schedule with the link to the recordings, because the schedule has that. So basically down to the shows and events, and it's down there. Of course, other things people can read about, but we will discuss the World Mediation Circle, which I told you I'll discuss with you. And that's about it. So this is where the link to the schedule is. There's a YouTube playlist. I don't want to take your time to discuss that. Everything's available on mediatorvikram.com, so people can have a look. So Michelle, it's all yours. Like as I keep saying, it's your show. I come in if you want me to come in. Otherwise, I am a spectator. I'm the only spectator.
No, I actually would like your point of view, just because we live two different areas so far apart. What do we 12-hour difference? Is it about 12-hour difference?
12 and a half.
And so I think that your perspective is to me, and I think, all that will be watching as well. So we can do a compare and contrast. So please, it's not my floor, it's yours too. I share it.
Perfect. But yeah, you'll find out as we go along that there are similarities on these issues. Things have been quite the same. Maybe let's just say that colonization has been a unifying factor. Let's look at it that way. Let's say, is there a positive? Let's just say that. So please.
You want to know is it a positive? I don't think. I think the ones that are involved in the power believe it's a positive, but no, I do not. Do you believe it's a positive?
No, I said the positive is that it's a unifying factor for us to talk about, and everyone has gone about the same experience. Any part wherever it was colonized, everyone's experience has been the same. So that unifies us in that sense. That in terms of experiences, when we talk about it, what we went through, what indigenous peoples went through, that's the unifying aspect of people who have actually, let's say, suffered under that. So that's why I'm saying that was the positive of getting people together on a certain aspect which is common to them. That was the thing.
Well, I think that pain can certainly bring people together, but I also believe that pain becomes generational. So, for example, my people are going through, when I say my people, I'm talking about the Black community, they're going through generational pain. And as a result, I have two boys, and my boys are going to feel the effects of what happened to me when I was younger, and it just passes on down. So what happened to me is one that I've learned perhaps from my mother. Her teachings were from her mother, and it just goes all the way back, passing down the line of recipes, but the recipes of behavior and mindsets. And I think that when you incorporate how negative colonization can be, I think about the ways that my generational mindset has influenced in a negative way. I love the positive aspect that anything that's traumatic can bring people together. I think you mentioned the humanistic approach of just empowering togetherness and empowering love in oneself. But I think there's a lot of pain that goes along with accepting colonization and all that is done in a negative format towards people. My
Absolutely.
opinion.
No, no, absolutely. Because I'm just saying that the experiences that people have had, I mean, that similarity of it is something that you see, and I mean, of course, individually and as families, people have seen different aspects of it. But
Yeah.
no, but you're going to take us, Michelle, through your thoughts about it. I'll come in later. I'll come in later. But your larger thoughts on it, or how it has affected, because one is, of course, on a general way, whatever happened, and then down to dispute resolution and mediation. You'll have to take us there also. You are frozen, Michelle. Whenever that happens, I put up the website. Yes, Michelle, you're back. But again, we'll have to, maybe unmuting might help. Yes, it does.
Sorry. I hope I was paused, like looking halfway decent.
I should have taken a screenshot to show you that.
Instead of just being paused, like.
Yeah, it does happen. I think a lot of times that's when the person actually gets frozen, but you were okay. You were okay. But there's a little lag. What happens? I think what happens is, over when you're speaking, it's that split second lag that happens, and you. I mean, I don't know what the reason is, because that's quite normally a person would get stuck for some time. But here, right now, when you talk, it doesn't matter. We'll go through with it. Yeah.
Okay. So where were we?
You're going to take us through your understanding of colonization, decolonization, and focusing at some point on dispute resolution and mediation. So let's get those thoughts out there, and then we'll take up our discussion after that.
Okay, I have a question for you. What are your thoughts on colonization in consideration with where you're from, so I can compare and contrast it to my beliefs and where I'm from?
Yeah, no, what I want to do is I do that after you've gone through it, because I don't want to influence your thoughts. I want those independent, fresh thoughts. That's the only idea, because
my thoughts are written down and my thoughts are good in my head. I just like to have just a general idea of just so I know where you're from.
Look, for one is on the general aspect of colonization affecting the country. So I really don't, because of those things, I don't like to get into that discussion, because that's a very large discussion. But I look at it from the aspect of mediation, and how a whole structure of dispute resolution, specifically mediation, got destroyed. And a lot of that because it's not available for people as recorded as what was really happening, they have not connected to that, and then they think that this structure that the colonizer gave you is the structure to have for dispute resolution. So to break those chains, because the decolonization aspect did not actually change things. We took the same structure that the colonizer gave us, we continued with it, and it's very sad when we see that, because a colonizer had their reason to make that structure the way it is structured. So definitely the people who came after that, it was convenient for them, because a colonizer structure was to rule, and the next lot that comes in wants to rule. So they did not break that structure down, and that of course has affected, for me, the dispute resolution and mediation. When I always look at it, there is a large country that we have to look at. For some reason, people are so focused down to something which where the numbers are not as large. I mean, when we look at the way mediation is coming into countries, and how it is, that box of mediation, like I say, which is being circulated around the world, is a very limited aspect of mediation. We have 60% rural population, and Michelle is going to tell me what is the population of India, and of course then the US. What is the population of India? That's your question, Michelle. Once you ask me a question, you have to answer mine also.
Oh, pardon my ignorance, because I have no idea what the answer to that is.
Just a guess. Just a guess. I'll tell you the answer, but just a guess.
Oh my God.
You.
I do not want to sound ignorant.
Doesn't matter, Michelle. No, I'm going to tell you the scale of it, because just a figure. Okay, what is the population of the US? Let me tell you. What's that?
Do you really think that I know that? I don't. It's
so just guess the US.
Those are not my studies. I cannot tell you those statistical numbers, because I don't want to say a number that's so low that everyone listen and say, "Is she serious right now?" No. No,
I want to show you this. Yeah, no, I want to put. I want to show you the scale of the things that are there, and how people are myopic in their understanding of how mediation has to develop. I'm saying in a country like ours, and this is in lots of countries and all across the globe. So let's go with the US population, 300 million. Okay, 300 million. We are 1.4 billion, right? So in us, we have 60% rural population. So almost 1 billion people is rural population, which is, of course, look at it, 3 times more than the population of the US. So the way we have to structure dispute resolution in general, for me, the focus is mediation. The way we have to look at mediation is so different than what is now coming. I call this also colonization of mediation. The way it's happening, it's really not the way it has to spread. For me, I mean, that's the way I look at it, because that's a very limited aspect of it, coming from sometimes from some parts of the world and US, because for some reason people look at the US, or what's happening there, because people say 45 years of mediation. No one looks at the thousands of years of mediation which we have in our culture. I mean, there was a very nice session in my morning, your night, with Hasnain from Pakistan. He actually took us very nicely, of course, on the structure there was, and there is at least knowledge of that. Countries have lost that knowledge of that structure. So to be able to understand mediation and to take it across the globe, and in each country connecting to something which was there, I think is the first thing that we need to do. Otherwise, it is again going to be another colonization, and that will be in the area of mediation. So that's, I mean, I'm putting it across, I mean, broadly there. We'll, of course, I mean, I don't know if this was the answer you're looking for, or I don't know, but that's the broad picture.
Yeah, it was the answer that I was looking for. And thank you for the information on statistics, because sometimes people need to hear that in order to understand the topic from different perspectives as well. The crazy part about mediation with me is that through my teachings, I was told that mediators do not look like me. And I was told that they're dominated by the male. This is in the United States, dominated by the males and dominated by white males. And that I would have a hard time breaking into that mediation field. But when you think about it, the white male are the ones that are the colonizers. You know, they are the ones that have the power, they have the control. So how can I expect conflict resolution or mediation through their eyes to be neutral enough to understand my side, to understand what I'm going through, or people that look like me that need assistance from people who understand them through empathy. And I found that interesting. So I did investigate, and I looked, and I'm like, this is true. I see the majority of the mediators, they don't look They're not like me, let alone females. And so there's a position where I'm in a spot where I'm not fully accepted. It's not an exception as far as it doesn't matter my skill set. It doesn't matter that I have all of the different degrees and or experience. It's about what I look like, what I am, where the power lies. And I think that that involves a lot of the colonization mindset, a part of it that I don't have because I don't have that power. Well, just think about all of the people that look like me that need conflict resolution, that need to speak to somebody that looks like them and understands where they're coming from to help with conflict resolution. That's the United States. That's how it is in the United States.
Michelle, we have to change that. We have to change that. You have to change that perception of people, definitely. But that was my idea of bringing people from across the world, that the whole diverse aspect of people with the mediator mindset, they're all over there, come from, okay, for me, I come from a country, at least in the bubble that I live in, there is no concept of any distinction in relation to color or religion and all that. So that's my bubble. I say it's my bubble. I'm sure there are things happening outside, but this is also a world. My world is also a world. So I create that world around me where this aspect doesn't come in. But I do understand that every country has a lot of challenges in relation to this aspect of how, say, whatever discrimination or whatever way people are treated. So I'm not going to, I mean, definitely, I will not be able to understand so much about that, because in my world, that doesn't happen. But I understand also that there are certain aspects of mediation which have to be looked at separately, other than the way the legal profession and arbitration, the way that developed, because there, again, the same thing I hear from people, that it's white men dominating that space. And that has trickled down into mediation, where it should not have. First of all, mediation had to be looked at separately, which it was not. So it trickled down from that aspect. That is where the issue with the court system and mediation coming through the court system, that's the biggest issue that happened. That was what was happening there, continued into mediation, which we have to stop. So that is why the whole concept of educating people on this being a totally different method of dispute resolution, that by itself is a whole exercise to be able to bring that in, because it's got merged there. So those are areas which we really have to focus on, because when you said about women, and I've had this discussion in the symposium itself. For me, this was only yesterday, I think. Yeah, yesterday there were some people from Cameroon, and we were talking about the aspect of women. And I said, look, for me, the whole concept of that motherly instinct that a woman brings in is very important in relation to mediation. And we had a good discussion on that. And of course, they agreed about what I was saying. But that's what we have to bring out. These are elements that are very important, which are not discussed around mediation. So which was why I opened up discussions on various other topics. When I talk about heart, soul, spirituality aspect of it, there are a lot of areas which are not touched, because maybe mediation, the way it has, that box has gone around, has come from people or from a society where those are not important elements. But that doesn't mean they're not important for people. So we have to be able to take it from a much larger, very large canvas, and then to start the painting. I think we're starting from a very bad base, and that box which is going around, and like I said, that traditional concept, to even connect with that, if that history is gone, that by itself is a big issue. So that is why the Indigenous Peoples and Mediation Symposium, let's at least find out. And you found very interesting things which came up from that. And that will become a larger discussion next year. This was still smaller. There was mediation in our culture and traditions last year, which was, of course, much bigger, that symposium. So we're getting thoughts from all over, but we'll put it all together. And I should not be speaking so much, Michelle. This is your show. You're making me.
Maybe because I'm so and learning from you and listening, because of so many different perspectives. And I think that I'm such a sponge. And so I'm listening and I'm learning. And I think that the viewers that are watching now and in the future can listen and learn as well, from both of us together, because even in mediation or conflict resolution, it's not just one person's idea. I'm a neutral, and the goal is for me to be understand whatever issues are going on and find a way to settle with an appropriate form of conflict resolution or alternatives to conflict resolution. So you're not speaking too much, you're speaking just enough. So thank you.
Okay.
But and to mediation and people looking like me and things like that, you know, is my internet good?
Yeah.
When I got into this field, I had no idea that I was going to go through these challenges. Of course, during my studies, there are people that looked like me. There were people from all around the world studying at Pepperdine. And Pepperdine is a wonderful university. You know, it's ranked #1 in dispute resolution. So I'm thinking I have this background from a location that's ranked #1 in dispute resolution. I should be able to get into this field with no problem and fully be accepted, but that was not the case. Not only am I going up against people that are that do not look like me, but I'm also going up against people who are attorneys. You know, I don't know if in India it's the same, but mediation is it's really dominated by attorneys. Now, yes, we have the situation that goes with mediators appreciated and on the same level as arbitrators, things of that sort. But mediation is also being taken by storm by, you know, attorneys. So if someone says, well, do you have background? Yes, I have a master's in law, but I'm not an attorney. So that hinders me from being able to be accepted. And when my goal is always to just be an assistance to conflict resolution. That's everything. I'm getting taught the same education, but then I look at where my heart is. And so when we think about colonization, and I say to myself, where's the heart of the person that is being the mediator? Do they have the same mindset in the negative format is what I'm referencing at this point? Do they have the same mindset as the colonizers? Are they doing this for power? Are they doing this just to have control or their hand in mediation where it's not sincere to me and where it's not going to be something that is fully efficient, not only that party that's dealing with the conflict, but the world? Because like I said, I'm trying to change the world one person at a time. And that's a lot of change if you're talking about the numbers that you threw at me. That's a lot. How many of me are out there, whether it's in the United States or whether it's in India? And I'm sure it's a plenty, but to be accepted, because I think that, you know, you have to think about where your heart lies, where's your gut, you know, that inner part that you want to say, okay, let me get rid of this mindset from that colonized mindset, because it's in everybody. It just happened. And do I get rid of it or get rid of it? Keep it in the back. I have to know in order to conquer it. Then I think that once we have that and we are accepted, conflict resolution should be a breeze. But does society really want to accept conflict resolution? Is the one thing that I've noticed that stands in my way. And I think it stands in the way of plenty of people that are looking for decolonization and mediation and ways to settle conflict resolution throughout the world.
But Michelle, let me tell you interesting things that keep coming up. Now there is Raymond who's put a comment in the chat, and this is a new word for me. I just checked up on Google, just checked. As a Chicano in the United States, I find it very intriguing, the concept of colonization and decolonization, since it is a part of my living conditions. So, I mean, as a Chicano, I just looked at it, Mexican descent. So a lot of people, I think that whole concept, again, I'm connecting it to colonization. The whole concept was rule by divide and rule. So dividing society was the way you went and rule. And that is, again, when I said the decolonization concept happened, that aspect continued. Even today, it's not about the US, everywhere, it is a divide and rule politics which happens. And that is why these issues will keep coming up. And when you look again, I look by statistics. The fact that if everyone says the United States is a democracy, same thing with India, they say it's the largest democracy, but you have to dig deeper. When we look at the United States, I'm just saying, okay, 37% of the votes of the country you get, entire votes, the president gets and becomes the president. So basically, on one end, you are talking about 63% obviously have not voted for you. Out of that, 33% haven't voted at all. So why have they not voted? That's another thing, a social aspect that needs to be looked at. But at the end of the day, you're not a democracy because you are a minority still. I mean, imagine 60, you don't represent 63% of the population. But that is what the divide and rule and the arithmetic of elections came up. Let's get this category of votes. Look, you are a much more divided society in that. So we are also divided. We also have that in our elections, and you have breaking them up into castes and religion and all that. There also you have those groups. So everyone's understood, okay, this one gives me 10% of the votes. That'll give me 15%. And okay, I added up, I've got my 37%. I don't care about everyone else. So you will never become a democracy. And if you don't become for me, that democracy means at least there should be a majority which supports you. So those are the divisions in society which I think affect the larger society, which of course we're not going to get into the entire concept of how those things work. But that divide and rule is something which definitely is going to be a factor when we look at dispute resolution also, and who gets represented as someone who is actually the person who's going to resolve the dispute. And that divided concept will continue if that thing doesn't change on the politics part of it, first of all. So we have to be able to, there's a much larger picture there which affects down to mediation. There's so much more happening which will affect things. So I mean,
Right.
we'll get into that, I'm sure.
But you touched on politics a little bit, and I think that the voting situation, it's a lot of stumbling blocks in regards to people being able to vote, and then people believing that their vote is going to matter. And when I'm discussing this, I'm going to speak solely on the marginalized community. And I think that a lot of times people in the marginalized communities, they believe that they want hope. You know, it's not so much a belief, it's a hope that change is going to occur. We've been looking and asking for change for years, hundreds of years. This is something that marginalized communities have been requesting. And the hope is, if you vote, let's just use voting because it's a lot of different components and or elements to this. If you vote, then change will come in your community. Marginalized communities will have school books, you know, for example. They'll be able to increase their education. You know, all of these different tools, or resources will be provided. This is trying to create hope. But hope is a dangerous tool that the hierarchy has used to control the marginalized. And it almost gives an incentive that people believe that if I have hope, then I'm going to follow the order that the people who are the colonizers, those with colonizer mentality, hope gives incentive to follow order in a way that leads one to think that they will be free from X, free from lack of education, free from lack of food, free from lack of money, free from lack of healthcare. These are all things that fall under that shelf of power. You know, when COVID, for example, occurred, how many people, you know, in marginalized communities were affected because of the colonizer mindset that different things should not, in regards to healthcare and money and food, should not be given to people in marginalized communities? How many people were ignored? And things were turned on, and numbers will come up and they'll say, well, they don't really care. They don't want to go out and get the vaccine. You know, same thing with education. They don't care. They don't want to get the education. Same thing with any type of conflict resolution. They don't care. They want to keep on killing one another. When that's not the case. Everybody deserves help. Everybody wants help, but they have to believe that it's going to occur. And that's why I say that hope is a dangerous tool, because these people are hoping that change is going to occur through conflict resolution, through decolonization, and it doesn't. It's hope is a powerful tool. Belief and actions are the things that we need.
Yeah, but I'm saying that's when we look at arithmetic, if those people don't matter in your arithmetic, then you do not take care of those things. But of course, like I said, that's another discussion which comes up there. But I mean, we have time. Time is not an issue, but I just feel that there, what happens is that for me, I've always been saying that the whole negative structure that has been created sucks us in. So we don't end up having those positive conversations, and we end up talking about this whole negative structure that's been created. So for me, I've removed myself away from that, and I don't even read the news, because that news is also what is given to you by someone who decides what that news is going to be. It's same thing with, if you said about school and classes and that about being able to education. Even those books that are created because you want a certain aspect to be given to people. Even in relation to history, what is it that you want people to know and what you don't want them to know? So these are all very selective things happen, and that's why, I mean, I just feel that people on the other end, I mean, people have to themselves get together, first form communities, that we get those strengthen communities, because that divide and rule aspect of colonization has carried forward. And up till we don't understand that and say, look, we have to come together, and that is where the people with the mediator mindset have to play a role, which is what I'm moving towards. That let's get them out. They're all there. Let's get them out. They're all in communities. They'll get the communities together, and once communities come together and then can have dialogue within themselves and with others, a change can happen there. Because if we expect it on the other side, that politics, that whole way of going about, I mean, I'm still connected to dispute resolution. The way those structures have been created, we'll always be banging our head against a wall. Always. So we'll be wasting our time. And even this conversation we'll have on the negative part is going to suck away from the positives that we can think of. So I actually, I mean, when I do, it might be a bubble. Again, in that bubble, I try to keep everything down to the positives that we can do, because the negatives are something we are fighting against. A lot of history there of how, like you said, control is a very important word that you used, and that control has controlled institutions, it controls the narrative, controls a lot of things. So on the other side, I think there are people who can get together. Yes, Michelle, again, I should not be the one.
No, no, no. No, you're totally fine. I think that when we label, call things negative, I think it takes away from the strength that the pain can give a person. You know, I look at pain as power. You know, I don't take anything for granted when it comes to a learning situation. So if I say that a marginalized community did not have X resources and all of the things that one would deem as quote negative, you know, because it can sound very harsh, but when it's happening to a person, the pain is on another level. You know, it's a thing where we all have to understand how to look at everything that's negative as a positive, because the goal is to learn from it. And whatever, anything that has happened to me, and I'm going to speak from a personal standpoint at this point, because I think that people, when they listen to me speak, they can gather where my strengths are, where my weaknesses are, and where
Yes, Michelle, you're back. But every point of time, you'll have to unmute yourself. That's the interesting part.
Every time. It's like certain days the internet is like spot on, and then other days it just goes in and out.
I know.
Only with important conversations.
And the interesting part is that here I'm saying that look, we have to develop this entire mediation world online because there is so much work to do and all that, and then connectivity being becoming an issue. And here what I'm trying to put together is let's say internet connectivity is a fundamental right, and everyone should get it. I think that we have to move towards that.
I do agree that it should be, should I say by law, a fundamental right. Because it certainly is needed, especially right now. It is really needed. So where did we, I believe I was discussing because I think that when you've spoken to different people, everybody has a different perspective based on their personal beliefs or cultures, their experiences, their teachings, and so I think that mediation and decolonization and colonization is affected in so many different ways. We have so many different views and feelings when it comes down to just the word colonization by itself, let alone adding in mediation. And one of the things that I've thought about when I think of mediation, okay, so it's this effect that I call it the oscillatory effect. And what I mean by that, when something oscillates, it's a motion, like a fan. It just keeps on going over and over. So it's an oscillatory motion. And that's when the object it just repeats over and over and again until it's stopped. And when it stopped with a friction. And well, first of all, the pattern of the circle, the motion is where I put in colonization. So because that's the pattern of control, that's the pattern of power. But while the movement is repeated until something or someone is acted upon and it's an external force that stops it, that's mediation. That's conflict resolution. That's another form of not control, but just solving a problem. So this friction without something, the friction stops the motion, which stops the pattern of control, which stops the pattern of colonization, that mindset. And that's when we open up the window for decolonization. And so I think that when we apply this friction called mediation or call it alternative to dispute resolution, we're able to stop what one would consider a negative mindset and take that negative into a positive, and then we can work towards changing the world. Because without it, we're going to stay in this mindset because we always have people in power over us. Now, yes, power is needed or control is needed for guidance under some aspects because we have to have rules. But when I think about ways that I can change and become a better person and better contributor to the world in a positive manner, that's where mediation steps in, and that's where this friction, this motion, that keeps on turning, and just constant generational mindset of colonization, where that friction needs to stop, where we need to, where that motion needs to stop is with friction, and that friction is mediation. That's my input on that topic.
Oh, that's
I
interesting.
hope that made sense.
Yeah, definitely. It's just that I'm just saying that, to actually get it going, to get it going, what all is required, what are the issues which have happened and why things have not moved in the right direction. Some thoughts on that?
I think that things may not have moved in the right direction, maybe because people speak or their involve their emotional mind over a rational mind or the thinking mind. I think that when people act on emotions and use their feelings, where these could be fears towards a group, doubts towards a group, happiness, sadness, any type of reaction. I think that it's focused on just that part of our mind. It puts a pause in conflict resolution, and it puts a pause in the effects of what mediation can do. I think that one can not only think with their thinking mind, we cannot always be that person of reason or that person that just has every detail in place. We all always know what's right and wrong. We have to bring those emotional mind together and our rational mind together, and that gives us that wise mind. And I think that with having a wise mind, we're more trusted, we're focused, insightful, and we have a plan. There's more understanding and there's more empathy. I think that with a wise mind, one is able to mediate effectively and or have conflict resolution effectively, thus supporting decolonization.
But what you no, perfect. No, but what you have to throw light also on the aspect of that, is mediation a process which is difficult for people to adopt for certain reasons, and what could be those reasons? Something on that?
Probably biases could be a reason why mediation is hard for people, to adopt it. I think that some people, they just don't believe in it. They don't believe that it's something that works. And I think about how I can help a person's mindset with, just those implicit biases. What influencing this thought? And like I brought up before, is it because I'm bringing it to a person? So if a person looks like me and I'm not that normal, I don't have the look that one would consider the mediator look. So maybe, that could be a reason where someone will be less accepting to mediation. What if someone thinks that it's just not going to work? They think that they could solve the issues themselves. I think there are a lot of hindrances when it comes to accepting mediation, especially in the United States. It's a lot of biases. Is it the same in India?
Here, I'm telling you, the thing is that whatever mediation is happening in the court system. And I'm saying what we hear about. Of course, mediation is happening all the time, all parts of the world. Again, I'll give you statistics. I mean, when you look at statistics, you understand. When the US, we're talking about 100 million cases being filed in courts every year on a 300 million population. In India, only 18 million cases are filed in courts, in a 1.4 billion population. So definitely there is something on dispute resolution happening somewhere. Only thing, it's not recorded anywhere. Obviously, it's happening in houses, in communities. There are people there. And I'm saying dispute resolution, out of that, how much is mediation, how much is, of course, it's not going to be formal arbitration, but within the community, someone telling you what to do. All those things are happening out there, not recorded. But the only thing is that the courts are, although they're clogged, but are not getting as many cases as they could if there was not something happening outside. So there are things happening there. We just have to be able to, because look, the colonization aspect of it, definitely I'm connecting it to why people sometimes, say in the US, always being told that there is an authority figure, that you have to go to an authority figure will make the decision, which is not, I'm not going to limit it only to the US. Again, this is an aspect of colonization which has gone into people's mind all over the world. So they are looking at someone else to take a decision for them. So that's one reason that it is the courts which people go to. And in the courts in the US, let's look at the US situation. They will go into the courts with the lawyers will take them into mediation, lawyers will choose their mediator. So it's a lawyer controlled market, let's call it a market. Not, doesn't sound very nice, but let's call it a market. So the lawyers have taken control of this also, and which is what I keep saying, that the colonized mindset was Dispute resolution happens in courts, and lawyers have to be part of it. And that has continued into the present situation. All dispute resolution still going into courts and moving into ADR. How much of that is mediation? How much of is arbitration? I also wouldn't have the statistics in the US, but it is going out of the courts, because if they say only 90% go for, only 10% go for trial, and otherwise they get settled, how they're getting settled, I have no, that distinction I'm not going to make, because I don't have the figures on arbitration and mediation. But I'm just saying that the lawyers control that aspect of it. So still in the mind of people, that whole concept that the pathway is through lawyers and the courts,
Right.
which we're not being able to break. And that's what I keep saying, that the 40-45 years of mediation that people talk about in the US, and if still you are not looking at it as a the mediator as your first port of call, definitely there's an issue somewhere in the way it's spread. So what I mean, I'm not saying that's going to be the only thing, but of course you're going to give me your thoughts on it. My observation is that in the court system, a person goes in because someone thinks, okay, this, I have a good case, and the lawyer tells them, even if you don't have a good case, they'll tell you you're the best case in the world and keep you there. Now, if you've gone into that with a certain mind that, look, I have a good case, but settle it because of the cost in the courts, the time in the courts, so settle it. The person is not happy doing that settling. So obviously the person is not going to recommend mediation to someone. For them, it's just a, oh, I had to do it, because otherwise the other side was, I would have gone into court. If I had lost, these were the costs which I would have had to pay. This like a gamble. I would rather go to Las Vegas and gamble. I didn't want to gamble in the courts. So you settle because of that. So definitely you're not going to talk about mediation in a positive way. And that's why if you read about that World Mediation Circle part of it that I'm talking about people wanting to collaborate, wanting to understand the other person. That's where the humanistic approach comes in. That is what mediation is all about. And that is what, when people understand that aspect, then mediation takes off. This deal making, settling kind of mediation is not going to get us anywhere. The lawyers will control it. I have to break that whole lawyer chain in India, at least, because like I said, almost 1 billion people in villages in India, if they go to a lawyer, that's it. They're stuck. I mean, here, like I said, numbers might be less, but still, average time taken is for 14 years for a case. 14 years of someone's life in courts. So you can imagine that the way that the whole concept has to be developed in a totally different way. People wanting to settle, not because they are forced to do it because the courts are inefficient, because it is a collaborative approach. And Michelle, you're again, you're frozen again. But Michelle, I always take the opportunity. I just put up my website, so otherwise people won't read it. So they're forced to read it.
Good, they're forced. And I'm sitting here like, oh my goodness, I know when I'm frozen now.
Okay, let me also
at
tell
least
you.
I immediately pushed the unmute button.
I know, now you've got the thing. It's a pattern. We'll understand how to go about it. So not an issue at all. So that's what I'm saying, that collaborative aspect, that within the communities, when people start understanding that that's the way they have to function. So when people, like I said, people with the mediator mindset, maybe the one part of the work will be to bring communities together. So that collaborative aspect, let's call it to a certain extent a social pressure. You want to be part of a community, so you want to understand the other person. You want to see that there is a certain environment created in the community where disputes don't affect it. Whatever. I mean, there are various aspects on that. And you being a sociology, I mean, student, and of course, a person qualified in that, you would maybe throw more light on that. But there is a much larger concept of mediation, which I'm talking about. And what we are seeing is a colonized concept of mediation, which is still going around.
Right. You are so correct. Everything that you touched on in regards to the court system, handling mediation, it's so crazy how they have their hands in it, you know, and it's also, it can make a person that's being forced, like you mentioned, they or at least they feel forced to mediate, and they're not going to respect the resource as something that is really good, something really a positive tool for conflict resolution. And I agree with you with your humanistic
Yes,
as I was
Michelle.
saying, it puts emphasis on setting goals for one to achieve something positive, and that is conflict resolution. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. And I don't want to disconnect or restart my internet on the computer because that'll take a while. So I do apologize for whatever is the force that's causing issues with the internet right now.
No, there's a good that's coming out of it, because I'm putting out the website. Every time you go, I immediately put the website there. I'm telling you,
Good.
people don't, I keep putting everything on my website, but I know that people don't read things. The people don't have the time to go out and go to a website and see what's happening. So I'm just using that time for that. So not a bad thing. It's a good thing.
Perfect. That's a good thing. But I really like that you touched on how mediation is being forced in the court system. That's something that I don't know if it's in India as much as I see it right now in the United States, especially after COVID. Everything is going to mediation before litigation, and that's how they phrase it: mediation before litigation. And it just sounds so nice, you know. But it takes away the power of mediation. And when I say power, I'm not saying it in a controlling manner. I'm saying it in something that's positive. It puts the authority in the hands of the people. But when you throw the court system in, it feels like it's forced almost. It doesn't feel like it's something that should be looked at as natural and a way to sincerely settle conflict resolution.
Yeah, because I criticize this whole concept of the court system and mediation so much. But I mean, of course, it'll be a repetition if I, of course, take you through the entire thing, and it'll be a rant, which as people call it. But I have to touch it because you've spoken about it. The whole concept of forcing people, in a way, it's being forced now, because somewhere this whole concept of mandatory mediation, someone thought it's a very good thing. Maybe the person had some good thoughts there, that okay,
Yeah.
this is, the people might have some option. But what really happened was, it just became a tool for courts to send out matters. And they're, first of all, one thing out of that, they're inefficient. They have to improve their efficiency, which in a way they're getting away with. And it's again a colonial concept that we can get away with whatever. There is no other institution in the country which can sit on someone's matter for 20 years. 14 years is an average. There the matters which stay for 20 years and even more. And when it is a criminal matter, now again, let me put the colonial structure to you. Send a person to jail, threaten them with jail. That jail itself is a colonial setup. A person is innocent up till proven guilty. What you have done is you've sent him into a structure where you've actually, whatever, you've convicted him without convicting him. How can you take away someone's independence? That whole, you've taken away the basic fundamental rights, and you've actually put them into a structure which is inhuman, first of all, inhumane, that whole setup. And the person, you're going to keep them there because of your inefficiency. It will take time. So you have actually created again a colonial structure there. I don't see any change. It's the same thing. And in countries like ours, the whole procedure and everything we picked up from the colonizer, and we haven't changed it. Because the people in power have understood that that's the way to rule. So we have to question a lot of aspects. I mean, you have to go into the base of it, which people are not maybe touching because it's okay. I kind of maybe just accepted it as part of life. I'm saying the policing system itself, the way the power that was given to the police, we came from certain legislation which the colonizer gave, the kind of control given to them. That's not the way a society which is supposed to be a democracy runs. You're taking away someone's basic rights based on someone's discretion, can do what they like. For what reason? Because you are you the goons of the administration? That's the way you want to continue it. Then where is the democracy concept? Where are the people's rights? So there is a lot of things that need to change in the way the structure is, and that's affecting dispute resolution because the colonized mindset then still continues. People think that's okay to do that. No, it's not okay. That's when we talk about the indigenous peoples and the way they went about it, all those things. But Michelle, at some point again, you're frozen. You were there? Did you hear me?
I agree.
Because
Can you hear me? Yeah. I agree with everything that you're saying, in regards to the control, especially when you throw in the court system with imprisonment. And a person is supposed to be innocent until proven guilty, and that is supposed to be our right. But yes, people are thrown into these structures, as you mentioned, and they have no control. The control is out of their hands. They never had control to start with, but the power is always in the hands of that individual or organization that was formed by a colonizer. It's that continued mindset. And without the money, without any type of resources that can help that person have their own power and have the ability to stand up for themselves, they have to stay there. And you're right. The power is taken, the freedom is taken, and it's not fair. It just comes down to what's fair versus what's not fair, what's right versus what's not right. And I think that when we incorporate decolonization into this, we always have to look at, one has to always look at the right versus the wrong. And the same thing with mediation. We're neutral, yes. In mediation, we're supposed to be neutral. You're supposed to listen to both sides and create a balance almost, and focus on empathy, help one side understand the other side and vice versa. And acceptance doesn't mean I agree. I could say that you and I are talking, we could have a conflict and you're strong in your belief, and that's be from your culture. And I could be strong in my belief, and that's from my culture. And when one tries to make a person change their beliefs or change their values, that's something hard to do. But what we can do and what we can focus on is creating a safe space of understanding, a space that's not under control, has nothing to do with power, but only understanding and looking at both sides and say, okay, your side makes sense. I don't agree with your side, but sense. And this is how we can type of communication that is settling. It creates, I think, an outline for decolonization mindset. And we can always work towards peace, because isn't that what we want?
Absolutely. But I'm saying, look, I'm even questioning the various basics that people talk about in relation to mediation: neutrality, independent person, impartiality, confidentiality. I am questioning all that. I mean, that's again, is it a colonized way of looking at mediation? You don't, I mean, everyone is now today, of course, there is a lot of talk on the aspect of neutrality. And of course, there was Bernie Mayer in one of my shows talking about his book Neutrality Trap. So that itself is again something that are we saying that has that been given again? Is it a colonized mindset? I mean, I'm just opening it out. I'm not saying that, I'm not putting anything to it, but yes, we need to discuss. Yeah.
Yeah, I can understand how you could say that, because I think that only because I'm so fresh in my training, and it's something that is strong. We have to be a neutral, then you have all of the different rules within arbitration. And I think that, yeah, we're being forced to have a particular mindset that is not one of our own, but is something that was pushed into us. It's a colonized mindset. But within the particular field, if you want to be accepted, if one wants to be accepted, then we have to abide by it. And I think that when we look at the confidentiality aspect, I would love to be able to share the different mediations that I've gone through and talk about it, because it's a learning experience for many. It discuss something with me and I say, okay, I had a mediation that was quite similar, and we did it this way, and we were able to look at this and come to an agreement. Am I breaking my confidentiality rules? When I took counseling and psychology for my psych degree, there was a
Yes, Michelle.
so
The only thing is, it's such an interesting discussion. So, I mean, the signal thing is an issue, but we'll continue it. But maybe and separately we'll have another one when your signal is perfect.
Right. I guess I probably would need to reboot, but I do want to go over briefly just how I think that we can get to a decolonized mindset. I think that we all have to have cultural awareness. I'm watching you because I'm like, am I frozen again? Am I okay?
Yeah, perfect.
All right, I think we have to have cultural awareness, cultural humility, and cultural sensitivity. And I think that if we have those things, then we can look at where we have that mindset, when that mindset, the colonized mindset is trickling in, and how we can stop it. You know, I think awareness, sensitivity, and humility are all things that should be embedded in one's mind in order to keep them focused, in order to keep them aware of where they are not being empathetic and standing to the opposite person or groups. And I think that if we work towards using mediation and using other alternatives to dispute resolution or conflict resolution, we can all have a decolonized mindset.
Well, why I was wanting to take you through these elements which people talk about in relation to mediation, about neutrality and independent person and impartial person and confidentiality, is because, let me show you, there's a larger concept of mediation which gets lost out, because again, this is a colonized concept. When we talk about traditionally about mediation, the way it was happening, there was no concept of
Yeah.
confidentiality. People were brought into a large space, which we spoke about. Even I'm saying in my morning today itself, that when I say Hasnain took us through this, I mean, this is a space where everyone came together, and there was mediation happening, but there's no concept of confidentiality there. So I'm saying that you're limiting people's concept of mediation by saying these things. Of course, neutrality in the US itself, people are questioning that part. So I don't even have to go beyond that. About impartiality, that omnipartiality concept is being discussed. So I'm saying all those basic elements, but in relation to the aspect of the person being independent. Now, that is not happening in the larger concept of mediation. And again, I'll just go down to, say, a village level. It doesn't, person did not have to be independent. The concept being the very basic aspect of trust and respect. Those were things that were important. And if you take that away, then I think mediation itself, you're taking away from that. You're creating again, okay, I mean, I'll still go say a colonized form of mediation, that it should be an independent person, and you want to move the person away from the entire scenario, then you're limiting the concept. So I think that we have to break out. Again, it's a colonized concept. We need to break out of that. Those are not essential elements. The essential element is, do the people, and it's going to be participants, Michelle, it's not going to be parties. We have moved away from the terminology of parties because it's come from the court system. It's participants. So it is just the participants trusting someone. That's about it, and nothing beyond that. So that's something which I think, again, you're frozen, so I will go back to my website and get you back whenever you come back. Yes, Michelle, you're back. You're back.
Yeah, I rebooted the internet. Hopefully it doesn't go out. I know we're past the hour,
So
but
that's not an issue. There's never an issue with my shows and events. Never. It's just that because I mean, if there was a session after yours, then there would have been an issue. But otherwise, there was one particular episode of Evolution of a Mediator, which went on for some 4 hours and 17 minutes without a break. So
oh
time has never been a factor. Never been a factor because look, these discussions are important, and thoughts that come out while discussing things. I mean, we don't know what might just come up in our minds, and we move in a good positive direction because of that. So I love these conversations. I mean, these are really important. So yeah, so I was saying that the concept of basics of mediation, which is told to people, I think it's a very limited concept of mediation. And when you look at it happening in, let's say, traditional method, the whole traditional method of going about mediation, where the mediation word is not used, but the process is mediation, all these elements are not important. It's the trust aspect of it. It doesn't, the person does not have to be independent. They don't have to, they can choose who they want. What you're really doing is you're limiting people's choice of a mediator
right.
by putting them into this box of, oh, this can't be this, it can't be this. No, it's not required. It's their trust in the person. You don't come in, and that's again, I'm saying this is again the whole colonized mindset, that we will tell you whom to sit with, we will tell you what that qualification is going to be. Where is all that required? I mean, two people trust someone. And
Mhm.
where do you come in? Are you going to go into people's houses and tell them whom they have to sit with? Get over this colonized mindset. No, the people will sit
Right.
together, people will resolve what you need to do, the framework that you've put together, that what they settle within themselves is going to be accepted and it's going to be enforceable. And that create that structure around it, that's it. So that it is goes beyond just a contract, it becomes as good as a court decree, which we have in India, which I keep talking about. And when people in India say we don't have a law on mediation, and I say it's the best law on mediation, everyone should have a look at it, countries should have a look at it. Today we have something so basic, so simple, that you don't need to complicate it. It's a people's process. It just leave it to them. And I think that is where I feel that this whole concept of the colonized aspect, that people should not get together. They should not get together. We have to come in. The state has to come in somewhere, however it has to come in. The judiciary comes in, however it comes in. Get out, get all that. You don't have to be involved in everything that happens on the planet.
They always want to have their 2 cents in the matter. That makes a lot of sense. If we would just take away the whole formality part of mediation and just be people going into conflict resolution instead of putting labels and requirements on it, like you're saying, with the confidentiality and neutrality and impartiality. That's I think you're right. That's important. It
Let
makes
me.
you it would make a person trust you more. Because with mediation, you have to start off with this long outline of the rules and what you're there for and everything that you're going to do and how it's going to be confidential, and it's very tedious. I can go over the beginning, my opening statement and everything, and that's like 30 minutes, if I want to go like deep. But am I really creating an environment where you can trust me, or am I creating an environment that sounds controlled?
Absolutely. That's a good way. That's a good way of putting it. But let me also tell you about the confidentiality aspect. That in the US there is this mediator and a senior mediator, Jeff Ketchawin, who's going all around the country saying your mediation is not confidential. What he's picked up is that there was some case which was filed in one state. In that, there was a mediation which happened in another state, and the court asked for a certain document which was presented in that mediation, called it in evidence. So he's trying to put across that it is not confidential, it can be asked for, and people are, even practitioners say that this is confidential. It's malpractice to say that, because it is really not confidential, because it depends on the state. The courts in certain states will ask for anything then you can't stop them from asking it, because their concept is to reach a fair decision, we have to know everything. So it's not confidential. So that is also broken. That whole concept of confidentiality also doesn't exist even in the US. Luckily, I keep saying India is much better. We have one law which covers the entire country, and it is confidential. So courts cannot ask for it. So in that sense, we are much better off. But so I'm just saying that those words are used, but do these words actually, do they really mean what people are going about saying? So I think we need to question all that. But I'm still saying that, look, let that whole formal thing that you want to keep setting it up. I see that this whole informal way of going about the way it should be or the way it should be practiced, I think we have to go back to that. And in some places where it hasn't developed, that's the way it has to develop. And that's when mediation develops. I don't want to even to say that this is mediation, the other system that is being created, like I said, through the court system and all. I think you're in a way kind of demeaning mediation, and which is not the
I
best thing.
think that it's keeping it, I think that it's setting a format to maybe keep the mediators, their biases at bay. And I think that that may be like a reason, because just like if let's say if I fall and hurt myself, or one of my kids, they fall and they hurt themselves, I'm going to patch and my mother, but that doesn't make me a doctor. So what happens if they fall, they hurt themselves, and they need better care, you know? So the doctor comes in, stitches up, and, you know, does all of the things that he's been taught to do. And like fashion, a mediator, they're taught to do, or we're taught to do things such as patching conflict up in a manner that we're doing more than just putting a Band-Aid on. Is to stitch it up and, you know, provide the medicine to help you, and the medicine would be the tools that one could use in order to deal with the conflict at that moment and in the future. So I think that setting some of the tone and some of the formalities may be good, but when we talk about it, it puts it into another perspective. And it makes me look at it and say, okay, this is a mindset that, you know, it's a controlling power type of setting that I'm allowing myself to participate in and just accept. But then I also have to look at, and this is where I said, look at your power, look at the pain, or look at that power, look at what we've learned from colonized mindset, and make it your power. That's how we decolonize a person's mindset, and we can move. We're using that tool that they, although that may not the best thing, but, you know, we're just shaping it, reforming it in a manner that makes it more productive for society or for oneself. Does that make sense?
No, I'll tell you the things that you were saying. I, of course, have a different view to it, and which I will put across here. That the whole concept of being taught. Now, I'm telling you that these are things. This is a human-to-human interaction. To say that I will teach you these aspects, because there is so much happening in that interaction. What all you understand, and you take out theory on that, you can tell someone. But what about so much more which is happening, which I, of course, have tried to discuss, which I told you about, the heart soul spirituality. That symposium was only to talk about that energy and connections, where the connections of the heart, the soul, being able to get to that point with people. Can everyone do it? What energy that do certain people bring in? And I don't have to go back. I mean, I'm just saying, even today itself, Hasnain brought that up. I was talking to him. So I was telling him, look, I'm saying that there are people out there who are doing it. He said, look, there's an uncle of mine. He sits with people and he brings in this, whatever aura, whatever you want to call it. He brings that there, and he actually helps mediate. He's not trained or qualified. And I'm saying, don't need to be. There is so much. It's like the aspect what I told you about, that motherly instinct. Tomorrow you'll start certifying mothers. You'll say, oh, you'll have to certify people to be mothers. You'll go to that extent. It's not something you can do. It's something which comes naturally to someone. And why I relate the motherly instincts to a mediator is because you look at the dispute and the people from that perspective. And I'm so not saying it has to be only a woman. A woman will, of course, I feel, will be better off on that, but a man can touch that aspect of themselves as a feminine side you can access. Do that. It's a different process. It requires a different set of elements of yours which have to be brought out. Don't put it into, I will be able to teach you this. I'm telling you, that's why I moved. Of course, I'm saying, I've started saying, okay, skill development, perfectly all right. Okay, if you want to use that, I'm still saying that person, that skill development is happening with that person, with the interactions that they're having, with every unique person that they interact with, and the unique participants in a particular unique mediation. It is so unique that to even say that I will create a theory about one individual matter that I was involved in, I think you're going totally wrong, because the next one is going to be so unique by itself. I mean, I mean, you'll hear me repeat this in some other shows. I keep saying there are 8 billion people on this planet. Each of them is unique. To be, first of all, to be able to generalize into how that interaction has to play, I will tell you how to interact with all 8 billion people on this planet. Either you're saying that you're creating machines and people are machines and we know how to read them. Then let's look at mediation and artificial intelligence and machine learning, and let's just put it into that, and then all the bias and all those things you might be able to take care of, which also you won't, because even in artificial intelligence and machine learning, the biases of the person putting that information will come in, so that you won't be able to remove those. So it's finally, it's about the trust. It's about people in a process gauging that person all the time. That's the whole concept of mediation. That's the good part. You can walk out when you want. So there are okay, there might not be just two people, there might be many more participants, but I'm just putting it down to a basic two participants and a mediator. Two people are gauging this one individual all the time, at every moment, because it's a very personal thing of theirs. It's a dispute of theirs which is so personal. To put things out to someone, you don't trust everyone. I keep saying, some people don't like it. I say, you don't even go and watch a movie without asking people, oh, what movie should I watch? And in relation to a mediator, you're not going to gauge every aspect of that person. You do it. You're not going to put out information to someone up till you don't feel that trust with that person. So you're trying to put it across in a very, it's the way it's put out is that, oh, we are creating this whole category of people who we have trained them to go beyond these things. You can't train people to go beyond. If you could, you will change the world. That will be the 40 hours you will give to the entire world, and you will change that. It can't happen. These are the basic seed that people have. And again, let me put it down to, again, repetitions. You will hear this, but that evolution of a mediator series, which I started my shows with, the whole concept with this. There is so much that goes into a person. Michelle has gone through so much in her life, right from childhood, the house that she was brought up in, her parents, her grandparents, the value system that they gave her, the experiences that she has. That is what makes you who you are. If I just put it so basic that I put you into this 40 hours and suddenly I made you a mediator, again, I'm demeaning you, and I'm demeaning the whole life that you have gone through and experiences that you've gone through, as if they don't matter. I said, Michelle is today a blank slate, and I've just programmed her into being a mediator. I think we are going totally wrong on that. And everything can't be taught. It is not a surgery. It is a human to human interaction. So again, is it a colonized concept that one, trust is not a factor? You can't, you should not trust people. We have to go beyond all that, and we have to create this machine, and that machine has to be independent and impartial and all that. Those things don't happen. It's a human, like I said, it's a human to human interaction, and those things are not required. Maybe, like I said, neutrality, maybe it's not required. And again, I was talking about Bernie Mayer's book about neutrality trap, and in relation to social change, he's spoken about those things. So those are things we need to, I feel we need to discuss all that, because what comes out of the US by them saying that we've had this system for 45 years and we will sell this to the world, I think it's that's another colonization which is happening, because you haven't got it right within yourself, because that's a different process through a different pathway that you give, the court system part of it. Okay, deal making, settling will happen. That's not mediation. Let's just say how we have to perceive mediation. I'm not saying people will not call that mediation. But let's look at from ourselves. Michelle and me are sitting together, and what we understand to be mediation, which we agreed upon, that whole humanistic aspect and all those elements, we'll call that mediation. We have the right to call whatever we want as mediation. And let's take that forward, and let's take that to the people, and then let's see what the acceptability to that is, because this deal making process, the acceptability is not there outside the court system. Within the court system, like I said, you put a gun to someone's head and the person settles. That's not, I don't think that's mediation, which I mean, like I said. So within that system, it might be working, but that's not acceptability of the people to the process. So
I can understand everything that you said. I think that it's coming from a person, having a master's in the field versus a person getting the 40-hour certificate in the field. I think that both parts of the study, it should be developing something that everyone has in them already. And, it's crazy because it sounds like, developing humanity almost, and it's and sensitivity and empathy in a person. And these are things that we all should have, but we all don't have it. And, I think there are good mediators, there are that are not so good,
yes, Michelle.
I have never had this many issues with my internet. It's
because this is something which, these are important conversations. People don't want you to have important conversations.
great. It's just, I'm sitting here and every time I'm watching you and I'm like, am I frozen again? It's gotten to the point where I just know it. And I'm like, why is the internet the hater right now? It's like, okay, it has a colonized mindset and not letting me be successful with this.
No, but let me tell you that, of course, this is a really important conversation, and there's a show that I have, In Conversation with a Beautiful Mind. We'll have that conversation when, at a point when you've got your signal right, we'll do that, because everything that we said can be repeated, not a problem. But I think it's very important. Everything that we are speaking about, I think, needs to go out, because, I mean, in a way, you're creating a foundation for maybe something new. So let's look at it that way. I mean, if the word is something which is used, let it be used. Whatever the way it's used is what is important. And things like you're talking about empathy. I mean, this whole concept of saying show empathy. You don't show empathy. You feel it. And everyone.
Well, showing it is one displaying that I understand. I think it's humanity, and I understand we can't. Saying the word show empathy may sound a little, it's a little vague, and impersonal. But if I didn't show it to you, then it would be me being dismissive.
No, but I'm saying, Michelle, the thing is that the aspect that you bring in, because you have that mediator mindset and you bring all those things there, people will feel it. And when they feel it, that's when that genuine connection happens. That's when trust comes in. Trust comes in from a lot of factors. It's not just you're trusting someone because someone said, trust this person. No, you are going to gauge every aspect of that person at every point of time. So that's why I'm saying that these are elements that what a person brings in to even put theory to it. I think, again, you're not doing justice to the person and the process, because there is so much happening there in relation to that interaction, that connection that is happening between people. To put it down to some theory and even dissect it in relation to theory doesn't matter. It still has to be a personal connection, because otherwise, if it was about theory, I'm saying artificial intelligence, machine learning, program it. All that theory that you're putting it, put it into that machine and let that do the mediation that you're talking about. Why not? I mean, we reached that level that a lot of processing can happen. If that's it, then if mediation can work, then that machine will be able to do it. But because it's a human connection, that those things will not happen, and you can't create mediators like that. So I will make mediators. I'm telling you, it gets to me when I read these whatever whatever flyers and whatever posts about, we will make you a mediator in this 40 hours. I mean, if you could do that, you could change the world. You would make a mediator. I mean, as I said, it's demeaning to mediators, and mediators should not stand up for that. To even say that you can make a person, like I said, your story of life is so unique, and all that.
I disagree with the 40-hour thing. I'll make you a mediator. I think it's disrespectful to I shouldn't, now that we're talking about it, I shouldn't call it the craft, because it's something that I think certain people, we just have it. Plus, I think it's disrespectful to the conflict, because with every conflict, there's a learning component to it. Yep. And you can't teach a person in 40 hours a skill that should be within their gut. And this is it's not a law class. You know, this isn't something where I have to know all of these particular terminologies to be a good problem solver. It's not a math class. The conflict isn't a math equation. This is life. And a person that has lived with multiple conflicts, you know, whether they're worldly, you know, personal, through family, you know, different relationships, conflict is within everybody, with everything that we do. You could have a conflict when you as you're walking down the street, in the supermarket, you know, driving. It's always going to be conflict. Can you teach me in 40 hours how to develop the skill to deal with road rage? You know, it's just like, it's just can't be done. And so if it can't be done with road rage, then it can't be done with big situations that really require a person to be trusting, a person to have that good heart that you were talking about, and just the sense of it's empathy, but it's also under that humanistic element, under the humanistic theories, where we have to look at how to make people whole. We're looking at people for who they are, and not judging them. That's how I look at it.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. These are things which come from within, with your experiences, but I still say that there is a seed. Michelle had a seed somewhere, and she connected to a lot of things because that seed was there. She could relate to what she was being taught, that teaching that was happening. You could connect with it because you had that seed in you. It's not that you could just pick up that theory and anyone could pick up the theory and suddenly be able to use it in a manner where you can connect to people. You can repeat theory, and I'm not saying that, like I said, a machine would be able to do it also. You can repeat those things, but that won't work, because the participants have to connect with you, and that connection aspect of it, I am only the ones that the words that I have, I've been putting it out, like heart, soul, spirituality, energy, bringing your authentic self. I only have those limited words. Maybe there is so much more which I don't have words for. We might not have words for. We don't even know, maybe, like the whole concept of an aura and all those things. And maybe a vocabulary is limited on that also, because we don't know what all is happening. So to even say that we know what all is happening and we will put it down to 1, 2, 3, and when you do these 1, 2, 3, you become a mediator. I think we've taken it to an extent. And why I want to connect it with colonization is because I want to give you someone who is going to do things for you, be it a lawyer, be it a doctor. Why I give the doctor example is also because we have these natural remedies, that whole setup with Ayurveda in India, which of course took off around the world. But that's been there for thousands of years. We've got that text which is available. But as the modern science, as we call it, modern medicine came in, that kind of, I'm not saying they could destroy it, because we're a large country, we had a large population, we could retain that aspect of it, a lot of it, but it was put down as a inferior concept of as a remedy for issues, as an inferior concept. So the whole colonization was, I will make certain things inferior and certain things superior. So that is for each of those elements to say that, okay, I will teach you this because I know best, and what you know is not something that is good enough. So same thing with, in terms of interacting with people, I will tell you who that person is going to be. I will give them whatever knowledge and training that I have to, and I will create that person. And that's the person you have to sit with. You have to get over all that. This is not those kind of things. This is a very different interaction where you can't do that. And I am fighting against it, and I will keep fighting against it, even if I have to do it alone. I will criticize this. I will. A lot of people may not like it. I definitely might not like it, because these businesses become a business. This for training is the only place I think people are making money. I don't think mediators are making enough money as the people who are doing the training are making money. It's an industry. It's an industry that has been created. And I'll tell you why, where it's led. And again, I will quote Jeff Chairwoman only, because he's at least more outspoken on these issues. I give this example of him talking to the Beverly Hills Bar Association, where he said that, look, I come here every year and I see different faces. And from his experience of being a mediator in the court system, he talks about that people come into the court system as mediators. Of course, they've done that training part of it, so that industry definitely has made its money. They come into the court system thinking that they will be recognized by lawyers, because like I said, it's a lawyer controlled market, and then the lawyers will give them private work. Doesn't happen. They don't get private work. They get disillusioned, they move out. A new lot comes in. So it's like a Ponzi scheme. You keep getting more people into it, so that whole new lot comes in. Disillusioned, move out. His own example he gave, that I was in the court system, and same thing, the lawyers were using me for free. And when I said that, now give me private work, he said, why should we give you private work? You offered yourself for free. So he moved out of the court system. So that's how you're getting people in. And if they're going to get disillusioned, there could have been people who would have made really good mediators, but they will move out of it completely, because the structure is not made for developing mediation or mediators. It's only to serve the purpose of lawyers and courts, which is what the whole colonizer's structure is. So it's still working under that structure. So
that makes a lot of sense. But I really have to stick to me believing that I don't agree with the 40-hour type of thing for mediation, because I think my life has, and I'm going to speak personally, I think my life is more than 40 hours, worth of conflict resolution and learning, so I think that a person that has the 40-hour training, I'm not trying to discredit, their attempt to maybe, develop something that they may have in them already. But I think that when I look at stuff like that, and as a person with a degree, I'm like, It just doesn't make sense. But then I have to look at myself as a person without any degrees and say to myself, you know, you have it in your heart. Mediation is something that you love to do, but it was developed, and it's something that I didn't know that I was going to enjoy being a peacemaker. I didn't know that. You know, if you told me this 20 years ago, a person like me that was involved in so much conflict, I wouldn't have believed it. You know, I wouldn't have believed that this would be the course of my life right now. And so mediation is something that it's a tool, and a resource that we all can use to make the world better, yes, but to also make ourselves better. And it assists with changing that mindset and getting a controlled mind as well, because I think that's important. But we have to start with ourselves, that individual. If that 40-hour course helps a person, go ahead and take it. You know, if that helps them develop something that was in them, I'm not going to say you need a master's degree in something that you just want to develop your skill and develop a feeling that you just want to learn more. You want to make yourself better with the skill of mediation. But I don't agree that the court system should control it. That's one thing that I'm conflicted with, because I think it takes away the trust, and it keeps that control and that power in the hands of the government, and it almost has that college mindset going, you know.
No, I think what you said about the aspect of you going through that education and being able to connect to certain parts as something which maybe brought out certain aspects of what you were, and you could connect to it, and you were put into, let's say, a certain path, which is mediation, as what is being put out as mediation. I'm saying you will create another path for yourself, which you will call mediation. So that definitely matters. So in terms of that education part of it, not a problem, because if you have that seed, you will connect to what is being taught to you in that whatever lecture or whatever you went to. That's
It was
perfectly all
being
right.
watered. So it was that seed that I had, and the education part was it being watered. And as a result, I'm a big, tree now,
Yeah,
so to
but
speak.
so I'm looking at the other people who have been sold this false promise that you will be made a mediator, and they
Right.
might not have had that seed, and they of course go through that process, but it's not that you become a mediator because you went through that. That's the kind of distinguishing thing that I'm trying to put together, that
Yeah.
you're realizing yourself is different from someone saying, now I made you this, go out and do it. Because that's, look, the user experience is going to be, of course, not the way it should be, and that's not good for mediation itself. So yes, people realizing who they are. Even Ken Cloke, of course, in that first episode of Evolution of a Mediator itself, he was talking about how he went for a lecture about mediation, and in 2 minutes he said, my life had changed. And that's what I was telling him also. I keep talking about it. Your life changed because you connected to it, because all that you
Yes.
went through,
Yes.
that's the important part. And that's what people should be told, that it's not that now you, like I said, now I made a toy and now the toy is ready, take it. No, it's not going to be that simple. So there's lots more which happen.
Exactly.
And
You hit it right up the what is it? The nail on the head. You hit it.
yeah. So I think, Michelle, at this point of time, maybe a concluding remark of yours has to go through, because look, with me, conversations can go on, and you will, of course, there will be a lot of repetitions to what you would have heard otherwise. You will hear if other shows, so definitely that will happen, but I won't take so much of your time, because we've discussed a lot of things, and one glance to that side means that yes, you are looking at the time factor. So do you want to kind of conclude what we have spoken, and then of course we'll continue you have to remember, last day of the conference, 30th, at 8:30 India time. That is when we talk about the learnings and key takeaways from the conference. You have to be part of that.
That's it. You said on the 30th, right?
30th at 8:30 p.m. India time would be 8 a.m. your time.
Oh, okay. Closing comments. I think that I learned a lot from you thus far, especially in regards to what I am and who I am. And I hope that other people can take away from that, because I think that we all have something in us. Not all of us are mediators, but I think we have to look at those people that you mentioned that have that seed, and we have to search those people out, and we have to be those that waters that seed, that person, in order to make them a huge contributor to this world of mediation, i.e. world of change makers. I think that together, I think nation to nation, I think that it's possible that we can have peace and lots of different ways of solving conflicts. But I think it's a tool that we all have to learn how to work together and appreciate the skill of peace and how we can just be positive individuals, bring humanity back into the world.
Exactly.
Into the people's hearts.
Well, you put it really nicely, and I'm going to use this about the aspect of those seeds. They're there. We have to water them, find them first of all. And that's exactly what that whole World Mediation Circle is all about. Let's just go and identify these people. We don't have to do it. People will do it for us. They will tell us. In schools, children will tell us. Communities, people will say. In families, people will tell us. Let's put all that together. Let's get them together. In relation to them, connecting to something, I'm saying, look, I have so many videos out there. They watch it, they'll connect to all that. What Ken Cloke himself says, when they connect to that aspect, they'll relate to it, because if they have that seed, they'll connect to all that. So we have enough material. I'll put together a whole structured skill development program also, where they can access it. But let's just identify these people. Let's put them, get us all together. And I'm sure you said change makers. I think a lot of change, and then the leaders, mediators as leaders, and leaders as mediators. We have to reach that level, and then change happens, because people with a mediator mindset have a major role to play in society, in communities, and that changes the whole concept of conversations, of dialogue, of course, attempt for consensus building. And at this point, I don't know, Michelle, if you're frozen, but you might be. Yes, Michelle, you're back. You have to, next conversation you have to make sure we have to get this right for sure, because it's been wonderful speaking to you. It's been a pleasure. I mean, really, all these things.
I'm going to be on my other computer next time. Yeah. This is terrible.
No issue at all. I think we've understood. I mean, related to the concept that we have. I think it's all connected. So thank you very much, Michelle. Lovely speaking to you. And of course, we're going to see you on the 30th for sure.
Yes.
And otherwise, you are going to be part of creating that World Mediation Circle, and a circle in circles and circles and circles kind of thing. So we'll do all that. So thank you very much.
Thank you for bringing this together. I think you've created a conversation that's needed. So thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. So I'll see you